Why did I tie it into Print Nightmare? Well, because Print Nightmare is kind of one of the reasons that Windows Protected Print is here. What is Windows Protected Print? It is a printing platform for Windows that is designed, as it says here, to use lower privileges and use IPP print protocol, which has been around for a long time, to get rid of the need for third-party drivers. So the idea around this is to get rid of a number of security risks that came about as a result of Print Nightmare that started around 2020, 2021 that saw us have to make changes to how print drivers were deployed. No longer could I just share a print queue off of a print server. I now had to have administrator rights to do that, to be able to add that because of some of the vulnerabilities that were exploited with Print Nightmare. So that was kind of the ultimate reason why WPP was developed. As it says here, it uses modern standards in secure communication, IPP and IPPS, to create a consistent print experience, which we don't have right now. Different drivers for different manufacturers. A Canon driver might not work with a Xerox device as it relates to stapling and hole punch and things of that nature. So trying to get a consistent experience around printing. And again, as this kind of mentions here, I kind of already alluded to it, the delivery is IPP. So historically we used LPR, LPD, port 9100. We would add a printer and type in the IP address. It would communicate with the printer over port 9100 or LPR. That's going to go away with Windows Protected Print. So the challenge has been, though, how do I get the features that I need? The problem that's going to come up with Windows Protected Print, as I'll show on some of the other screens, are print quality. If I really care about color quality, how am I going to get that vendor experience that allows me to manipulate the color, do things like stapling, hole punch, things of that nature? So that's one of the things that the vendors are all solving for right now. And again, these WPP print queues will operate using the IPP port that is already existing on your computers right now. If you went to add a printer right now, you do have the option to add an IPP printer. When you turn on Windows Protected Print, that will be the only way that you're able to add a printer, going forward. So that's kind of a little about what Windows Protected Print is. It's going to be a new/old version of printing because IPP has been around for quite a while now. So it's well established. It's just that Windows Protected Print is going to add in some extra layers in there that will limit some of the capabilities. So the why. Well, why is Microsoft making this change? Well, what they have said is that up to 9% of all vulnerabilities that have been reported to Microsoft's security system are tied to the print stack. Okay, so that's a pretty large number, almost 10% of vulnerabilities. Driver deployment is a headache, right? Putting out consistent, fully featured drivers across a mix of equipment. I might have HP printers, Xerox copiers, Canon copiers, a different mix of devices has always been a headache for IT teams. So this is designed to help alleviate that particular headache. And a big push lately has been ARM64 processors. They were supposed to be driverless. As we have seen with our clients, that is not necessarily the case. And some manufacturers are behind the 8 ball now with ARM64 as a result of the alleged driverless mentality of that. Some manufacturers are having to use other manufacturers' drivers in order to make them their print devices work with ARM64 architecture. So those are just some of the high-level reasons why Microsoft's making the change. Obviously, the biggest one is going to be the security vulnerabilities. We always want to get around any kind of thing that could allow an attacker into our infrastructure, and this being a big area where that's been done, especially as it was seen with Print Nightmare, was one of the reasons for this change. So when is it available? Well, it's available right now. It's already there. If you go into your printers area on your computer, you will see Enable Windows Protected Print. Sometime in 2027, Microsoft has been very unclear about exactly when. It'll be turned on by default. You can't get around it. Kind of like the move from Windows 10 to Windows 11. They're not going to support Windows 10 anymore. It'll be the same kind of thing here. Drivers are already, I think, starting in 2026, Microsoft will not be doing digital signatures of drivers anymore, so that's going to start the process with Windows Protected Print. But ultimately, in 2027, at some point, it will be the default. Just don't know when it will be the default. So I wish I had an answer for you. I looked high and low for an actual date. I don't yet have an actual date. We'll probably get an actual date on December 31st of 2026, I'm sure, when we, and they'll say January 1st probably, knowing Microsoft. So what does it mean for you? What does it mean for you as an end user? What does it mean for you as an IT, as an MSP? What does it mean for you as internal IT inside of an organization? Well, again, no more third-party print drivers and modules. Okay, now some of us may clap and be excited about that and cheer and all that. Again, the idea here is a driverless printing model. When it's enabled, client computers can no longer use third-party print drivers. Okay, this is very important. It is all or none. I can't turn on WPP, kind of, sort of. It's on or it's off. Your traditional drivers are gone. I'm going to show you what that looks like in just a minute here. I went ahead and took the dive for you guys, and on my computer, I went ahead and turned on WPP just to show you what would happen when you do turn it on. Okay, so you can't have a traditional print driver based printer and a WPP printer. It is all or nothing. Okay, the good news is that you can revert back from WPP, but when you do, you must reload all your printers and all those drivers. Okay, the printers are gone. You have to rebuild them. So be very careful, and I'll talk about that more towards the end of the presentation here as to what our recommendations are as far as going to WPP. But just know that if you do turn it on, it's going to be a headache to turn it back off and get all your printers loaded back on there. Okay. So I really pause on that bullet point because it's a very important one to note there. Point and print installation of third-party print drivers is also eliminated. So find a printer. If the printer is going to ask to load a driver, it will not see that printer. All right. So the reality is that some printers and copiers will no longer be supported with WPP. And we're going to get to that in a second, how you can look and see if yours are supported and the Mopria Alliance and what that means as well. So this is a good thing, though, because now you can't unwittingly push a printer out there as an attacker and say it's a printer and look like a printer and act like a printer, but it's not really a printer. It's some kind of malware. So that's a good thing from a security standpoint. All right. So that traditional point and print installation will be gone. Okay. And I kind of mentioned this a little bit on one of the previous slides, that this lowers the threshold for who can run the printers and the print spooler. We're no longer going to require it to be a system level admin type user. It's going to be a user-based task. So we don't have to elevate user rights or give people admin rights or log in as the admin on their computer to load printers. It's going to be a much more seamless process. So limits the bugs and what bad actors can potentially do inside of your environment. Okay. So how does all this come to play? Well, a number of years back, Microsoft and a number of the large print vendors out there created the Mopria Alliance. And tied to that is a website that can give you visibility into whether your printer or copiers are supported. So that URL is right there. It's mopria.org. And you can just go straight there, or you can go to the little /certified products if you want to there. But what they say is about 70% of all printers and copiers are already Mopria certified. Okay. Now, just because they're Mopria certified, which means that they will work with Windows Protected Print and IPP, does not mean that they have a print support app, which we're going to talk about here in the next bullet point, or fully functional, we will call them air quotes drivers, because they're not drivers anymore, but fully functional features. So things like, again, stapling, hole punch, pulling from a specific tray, pulling envelopes or heavier card stocks, things of that nature. So just because a device is Mopria certified simply means that it will work with the IPP protocol. All right. Does not mean that you can use all the fancy features that you would expect to use with a larger copier. And especially the biggest issue I think that will come down the pipe is the print quality. Different manufacturers have different ways of delivering that color print job to the machine to make it look as close as it possibly can to what you expect it to see on your screen, so that it looks like that on the paper. That will probably be one of the biggest issues that I see coming down the pipe, is that print quality could be an issue. So the answer to that is going to be print support apps. So many of the manufacturers have already created these. Our two primary manufacturers are Canon and Xerox that we work with. They already have print support apps available. Okay, so like drivers, as it says here, this is going to allow the manufacturers to separate themselves from other manufacturers as far as pushing these special print capabilities around color management, around stapling, hole punch, etc., to their devices. Okay, and the benefit of this is that unlike drivers that could be out there on any given website, one of the nice things about print support apps is they're going to be available through the Microsoft Store. So you can go to the Microsoft Store and download it that way, and that's going to be then a validated app as opposed to a driver that may or may not be certified, since it's being pushed through the Microsoft Store and through the individual manufacturers' websites. This is going to be a way to eliminate some of those vulnerabilities that could be caused by drivers or somebody putting a driver out there that wasn't actually a print driver, it was actually some kind of malware. So what this is going to look like, I'm going to exit out of the PowerPoint here real quick just to show you what the Xerox app looks like. So the Xerox app is called the Print and Scan Experience. So what it will look like when I hit File Print, instead of having a traditional print driver pop up, it's going to automatically query the Print and Scan Experience, and it's going to then go into the print area. Okay, so if I had to send a normal print job, which I'll actually do here. Actually, I'm not going to, because I turned off protected print mode, so it won't force me to do it. But it would give me the print option here. I could then choose, that PDF, or if I was already in a PDF, it would have, gone ahead and launched this. Let's find a good document here. So in this case, it's going to launch the document, and it will give me the traditional print experience. So it's going to look a little bit different. Instead of having an extra pop-up that happens here, we're going to have a side box over here that will give me any of those features that that particular machine has. So this should look very similar to some of the drivers. It will look a little bit different, but it will definitely communicate with your machine, and it will ask it what features it has. Does it have stapling? Does it have hole punch? Does it have a booklet maker on it? Okay, so it'll be similar to drivers, but it will also be a little bit different. So your users will have to, learn a little bit different way of using these print controls. They tried their best to keep them as similar to the drivers as they could, but there are definitely going to be some differences out of necessity. So most manufacturers have launched these print support apps. And so, like I said, in our case, our vendors being Xerox and Canon primarily do already have these print support apps. So if you do, oopsie, and turn on WPP, we do have the ability to provide you with print support apps that will work with WPP without having to go back and reload your drivers if that happens. Okay, so that's kind of how it works, where this all came from, what the Mopria Alliance is. A lot of people thought Mopria was just a way of Android printing, but it's not. It's all the printing, but it was a consortium of all the manufacturers plus Microsoft to design this way around Windows protected print, and how do we make printers more secure and the print process more secure. So what does it look like? I went through the pain for you, as I mentioned, of turning on WPP. You are warned twice when you turn it on. The first warning is, are you sure you want to use Windows protected print mode? And you either say yes, continue, or cancel. Once you say yes, continue, you are then prompted to say, are you sure you want to use Windows protected print? Even Microsoft is scaring you away from their own solution here, right? And it will show you what printers will get deleted from your environment or from your computer if you turn it on. So these would be my printers that are not IPP printers, and they are printers that are driver deployed. Now, in my case, I did have some other printers that were IPP delivered, and they did not rely on drivers, or they used a generic driver, so those did not get deleted. So I did have a few printers left when I turned on Windows Protected Print, but these drivers are automatically, or these printers are automatically removed for you by Microsoft when you turn it on. Okay, so just be aware that they're going to warn you twice, and then after the second warning, your printers are gone, unless you want to re-add them later. Okay. So once you turn on Windows Protected Print, if you try to add an unsupported printer, in other words, if I try to do a //server/printer, it will say we can't install that printer right now because it's trying to load a driver, all right? And it will not let you do that, Okay, so if you ever get this pop-up, if you turn on Windows Protected Print, it means that you've either tried to add a printer that is trying to add a driver, or you're trying to do a server share with a printer that way. Okay, what you will be able to do, and the only thing you'll be able to do, is if you think back to, for my IT folks, just the add a printer wizard, where you add a printer and you go and you choose typically a TCP/IP device, you type in the IP address. Well, this drop down here that says IPP device, there is no longer a drop down. I mean, there is a drop down, but the only option will be IPP device. You will not have the option to choose TCP/IP device or any other type of device. It's going to be IPP and IPP only. You will type in that IP address of that copier or printer, and it will walk through the process and it will install that printer with a dummy driver. I shouldn't say driver, it's the wrong word, but a dumbed down experience, shall we say. Single-sided, two-sided, color, black and white, that's about it. Okay, but all those features will be gone as far as the traditional print driver methodology. Okay, so that's what you will see when you go to add a printer. Now it's nice because an individual user now can add their printer if they know the IP address of that printer. Okay, by the way, one thing I didn't mention before is obviously any scripts that you had that push out printers and print drivers when you turn on WPP also do not work anymore. All right, so those get broken. So just bear that in mind. If it's using scripts, group policy, any of that kind of thing, that will be broken as well when you turn on WPP. Okay, so this will be the only way to add a printer. Of course, we will still have the ability as an IT administrator to do scripts and things of that nature. I'll talk about another software that we utilize with a lot of our clients. Some of you on this call probably use that software called PaperCut and how it helps with pushing out these IPP-based devices. But that's kind of what you're going to see. Just like I said, I went through the pain for you, so you don't have to do it. That's kind of what you're going to see visually. So what do we recommend? All right. What we recommend is if you want to try WPP, get a test computer or a laptop and turn on WPP on that. Do not use a production computer. Okay, get a laptop, an old laptop that you're not using anymore, you know, whatever you want to do, and use that as a test computer to test all of your printers and whether they are compliant with the IPP protocol in WPP. Okay, that is number one. Do that first. Okay. Then, of course, you're going to verify that your devices are compatible by visiting the Mopria website. So they'll go do that first. And then again, like I mentioned before, even if they're compatible, you may not have full functionality. I think I've kind of beaten that like a dead horse there, all right? But just know that that's out there. Test and plan now before it is required. We recently have come across issues with OAuth 2 and scanning with our clients. We've had, over the last couple of weeks, as a result of Cloudflare, we've had a number of clients have major issues with OAuth. Well, that's because Microsoft had put it in place, OAuth 2, and they didn't really enforce it until recently. And now all of a sudden they're enforcing a logged in user and all that jazz. And so that created a lot of headaches there around OAuth 2. Let's not have the same issue with WPP. I recommend testing and planning now before it is required, because again, at some point in 2027, whether that's January, March, June, whatever date they end up arbitrarily deciding, it's going to be required. It's going to be forced by Microsoft, okay? So we recommend testing and planning that for that now versus later on when it is an all or nothing, okay? Here's the sales part of it. The first part of it was informational. This is the sales part of it for you guys. Set up a demonstration of our preferred print management and print queue deployment product, which is called PaperCut. All right, we'd love to do a one-on-one with you guys of that. Anybody that doesn't have PaperCut, for our clients that have PaperCut, if some of this stuff is new that I'm about to talk about in the next couple slides, then by all means, set up a call with me. You know how to reach me, and we'll do a little bit more of a deeper dive on some of the newer features that maybe you're not aware of within PaperCut. But PaperCut is a catch-all for print management, print queue deployment, and scan management for us. We've had a lot of success with PaperCut with our clients. So talk about that real briefly here. Historically, those of you that know PaperCut in the past know it as a secure print capability. I want to reduce unwanted print. I want to know who printed how much color, because I got a big color bill, and PaperCut does still do that, okay? But that's not the only thing it does. PaperCut is a great product for tracking and controlling print volumes, for partnering alongside any security and compliance initiatives that you have, whether that be HIPAA, Sarbanes-Oxley, you name all the different alphabet soup things that we have to deal with from PHI and all that. That is important for us to be able to keep track of and stop people from printing things they shouldn't be able to print. But what PaperCut allows me to do with that is then also give me that follow me aspect where I can go to any copier in my fleet, tap my badge, or type in a printer, type in a PIN code, or even now that we're all in the phone age, where I want to scan a QR code and release my job at a copier or printer with a QR code. Okay, PaperCut facilitates that, of course. That is still a core feature of PaperCut, which is secure print, follow me print, and security. But what a lot of people didn't know is that PaperCut can help with Windows Protected Print by pushing out your print queues, since their print deploy feature already uses the IPP protocol. When PaperCut's print deploy agent, which sits on every computer as an endpoint, pushes out printers, those printers are being pushed out as IPP printers. Okay, so PaperCut gives you that easy way of facilitating that move to WPP by pushing out print queues wherever you want to. And the neat thing about that part of their product is that you can push out printers and copiers based upon IP ranges. So let's say you have multiple buildings or multiple offices throughout the country or multiple floors on a building, and you say, based upon this IP range, I want these 3 printers to be loaded on this person's computer. When they fly with their laptop out to LA, these 3 printers in Atlanta are removed and the 5 printers and copiers in LA are loaded automatically. IT doesn't have to intervene. So Print Deploy already does that. And oh, by the way, in the current world without WPP, it does push out the fully functional drivers as well, stapling, hole punch, etc. But I can also push that out based upon users and groups. So if accounting should get specific copiers and printers, and HR should get specific, copiers and printers, and sales should get that, I can do it based upon users and groups in your intra ID instance or local AD if you're still using that, or for my Google folks, Google Directory Services. I can even narrow it down to a specific device. So if the CEO should get this printer and nobody else should get it, I can say, hey, push this printer to the CEO and nobody else. So I can really get very granular with that particular product with Print Deploy. Okay. The other big thing, like I mentioned, I alluded to, is that OAuth has become a big deal right now with scan to email. It's causing a lot of scan to email to break. And this is where PaperCut comes into play, both with the PaperCut MF product and with their cloud product, which is called PaperCut Hive. The challenge with OAuth and O365 is that you have to go to every copier that you have, put the tenant ID, the client ID, and the client secret value in every single copier. If I have 1 copier, not a big deal. If I have 2 copiers, not still a big deal maybe, but as I get into 3, 4, 5, and more copiers, PaperCut now makes it so that you put that OAuth credentials inside of the PaperCut application server, and all of your copiers are now going to work with scan to email, as well as giving you scan to cloud capabilities, which more and more of our clients are telling us we have to have. I need to be able to scan to OneDrive, Google Drive, SharePoint, etc. PaperCut, in addition to the Windows Protected Print aspects and the security aspects, it is also solving for this OAuth 2.0 that has become a real problem for copiers out in the field right now. Okay, so that's another reason that we like for our folks to look at PaperCut over and above the other benefits that are there. PaperCut can be deployed in either an on-premise or private cloud manner, so it's still a solution that's not hosted, but you can put it in Azure or AWS or Google Cloud and keep your own instance. That's my preferred recommendation because you control what version you stay on. All right, we can have a whole conversation. I'm not going to bore you with the reason why I say that. If we have a side conversation on that, one-on-one, I'm happy to give you my reasoning behind why either on-prem virtual machine or a private cloud deployment of PaperCut is our preferred methodology. But they do have a true SaaS offering as well called PaperCut Hive that gets rid of the need for any kind of server, either in your virtual environment, whether that be hosted or on-prem virtual or physical machine. Okay, so that's the end of my sales pitch, if you will, on the PaperCut side and how we can help you solve for Windows Protected Print in the near term and the short term, as well as pushing out print drivers and solving for the OAuth. So for those clients that are on this call, like I mentioned before, that already have PaperCut with us, and this is new information, please feel free to reach out and let's kind of do a catch-up call on some of the new features that you might have access to. For those that don't, again, love to have a one-on-one demonstration. We'll be doing some follow-up after this call, thanking you for coming and then seeing if you have any need for follow-up on it. But that's the end of my sales pitch. All right. Hopefully the first part was very informational and the sales pitch was very minor there. But right now I'm going to open up for any questions that may have come in. Austin, do we have any questions that I need to answer before we kind of conclude?
Yeah, we do. So mixture of Q&A and chat. First question, somebody asked, so if we're not currently leveraging print deploy, will we need to now? We currently deploy via find me print via GPO.
You do not have to. One of the things that print deploy helps with, if you're using me print, the secure print, or as we call it, print anywhere now. We've kind of renamed it because it seems to be a little more friendly than find me or follow me. You do not have to use print deploy. Print deploy is a very nice feature for pushing out the find me or follow me print, but also pushing out those direct print queues should you want to leverage those. Because a lot of our clients do tell us, hey, I want the secure print, but I don't want only secure print. I want to still be able to allow users to print directly, but I still want to track what they're printing. Direct printing still does allow you to do that with PaperCut, and that's really where print deploy does shine, is pushing out different mixes of printers across operating systems, either because print deploy is not just a Windows solution, it is also a solution for my Mac users to push out the appropriate PPDs in a Mac environment as well. So good question. You do not need to do that. It might be something that you will potentially look to as Windows protected print comes down the pipe, since it will push out the find me print as a IPP printer.
Good. Next question, I think you answered it briefly. Somebody asked, how does this affect companies using Mac OS?
So Mac will not be affected by Windows protected print. All right, but there are still levels of vulnerability that are out there for both Mac, Linux, I mean, you name it. There are still vulnerabilities that are TBD, but the print deploy software aspect of PaperCut does help with Mac deployment. I have a lot of clients that have a mixture of Macs and Windows in their environment, and getting drivers on the Mac that has full functionality has been a pain, and that is another area that the print deploy feature of PaperCut does really help our Mac clients specifically with.
All righty. Next question here. Somebody asked, are we going to have issues since we use PaperVision?
No, PaperVision is different. PaperVision is a document management platform, a scan management platform, so it would not be tied into Windows Protected Print.
Cool.
That it?
I think this is I guess one of the last questions here. Will this change affect PaperCut's functionality for existing users? Any performance changes, things like that?
So as of right now, no. But going forward, one of the things that I've actually had this conversation with PaperCut, they're going to have to solve for are these print support apps, because as it sits right now, when I push out the printers with print deploy, this is one of the things I've been testing. The print support apps do not pop up. You get the very generic driver, black and white, two-sided color, that kind of thing. So that is something that PaperCut will be needing to solve for in the future, is how do we push out print support? So right now they've solved for how do I push out the driver, which has been a challenge for a lot of people. How do I push out drivers globally using just the print deploy app? They're going to have to figure out how they're pushing out and how they're tying in with the print support apps going forward. So as of right now, not solved for, but definitely will be something that's on their roadmap. And I have a call with them later this week to kind of discuss that as well.
All right. Next question. Are we aware what manufacturers' devices are not Mopria certified?
That would be up to your manufacturer. Pretty much every manufacturer is at some level certified, whether all of their devices are or not. There's obviously 15 or 20 different manufacturers of printers and copiers. I can't possibly have memorized all their models and stuff, but that's where that website is. I'm going to go back to that slide actually real quick, just so you guys can see it and have it handy. This is the slide that kind of gives you the Mopria website. So let's put that back up there. So mopria.org/certified partner or products. You can literally type in your manufacturer, grab there's a drop down there that will show you all the devices within their product line that are certified.
All righty. Next question here. How does WPP affect PaperCut deployments using print management on Windows Server to manage the printers and drivers? Will changes need to be made on the Windows Server instance?
That kind of already answered that. That kind of comes back to the 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 printer apps that are out there. As of right now, those whoever asked that question knows that we're pushing out drivers using print deploy and getting those fully functional drivers out there. Once we move to Windows protected print, like I said, even though PaperCut will push out those IPP devices, they will be pretty generic in functionality. But that's one of the things that they are solving for right now is how do we tie in with these print support apps.
All right. I think last question for now. We have a couple trickling in. Somebody asked, does the on-prem PaperCut application run on Mac or only Windows?
So it can run on Mac as its server. What I would say is that in those clients that are Mac only and don't have a server to put it on, I would probably look at the Hive product, which is the software as a service. I don't love running PaperCut on a Mac as the server, but PaperCut itself, the other features of it, the printing aspect of it, the print deploy feature, that is all definitely 100% Mac compatible. But I would not want to. I mean, I do have a couple clients that have Mac as a server, but I would probably lean towards using the Hive product, which is the software as a service hosted solution instead of the on-prem.
All righty. I think that's all of our questions. We are caught up. Again, if anybody has questions, you can drop them in the chat and Matt can answer them now.
Toggle out to the chat real quick and see if any come in. Right, let's see here. Yeah, Windows Server it is, yeah. The deployments with drivers, okay, good. Any other questions? All right. Well, again, I give you guys back 24 minutes of your time here. I told you it would probably be about 30, 45 minutes. Thank you so much for participating. We had, like I said, just an overwhelming response, and we'll definitely look to do some more events like this in the future around other technologies. But definitely feel free to reach out to myself directly. We will be reaching out to all the attendees ourselves to see if there's any kind of follow-up you need from us. But again, thank you so much for your time. Hopefully this was educational for you guys and helps to, maybe make Windows Protected Print a little bit, maybe not less scary, because I probably made it a little bit scary, but at least a little bit more understanding of what it is and what it's going to do. So thank you so much for your attendance.
Thanks, everybody.